You did everything right. You faced your demons, you journaled, you meditated, you cried in silence when no one was watching. And now, you feel nothing. No purpose, no fire, just a strange stillness that no one warned you about. This isn't failure. It's the doorway into a deeper self, the one buried beneath your pain and beneath your performance. They told you shadow work would set you free. They never told you freedom might feel like emptiness. No one talks about the part after the healing, the part where you wake up, stare at the ceiling, and realize you no longer want what you used to want, but you also don't know what to want instead. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're in the middle of a quiet collapse that Carl Jung understood better than most psychologists today. In this video, we're going to answer the 3 unspoken questions that haunt you in the silence after healing. Why do I feel worse now than before? Am I falling apart or falling into something? And if fear no longer drives me, what will? Let's go deeper, not into more healing, but into what healing ruins before it rebuilds you. You expected healing to feel like a sunrise. Instead, it feels like a blackout. You're sitting there wondering, did I do something wrong? Wasn't this work supposed to make me stronger? You're not imagining it. The very first thing that happens when you face your shadow isn't a burst of energy. It's a breakdown of everything that used to keep you moving. That's not failure. That's exactly what happens when the old engine dies and the new one hasn't started yet. Your old life was running on fear. Before you did any inner work, most of what you called drive wasn't actually drive. It was pressure. Pressure to be seen a certain way. Pressure to escape the shame of feeling not enough. Pressure to prove you were worthy of being loved. Maybe you worked 12-hour days not because you loved the work, but because you were terrified of being called lazy. Maybe you kept pushing through exhaustion because you couldn't stand the thought of being mediocre. On the outside, that pressure looked like ambition. Inside, it was a survival strategy. Carl Jung saw this pattern clearly. He wrote, "The persona is what one is not, but what oneself and others think one is." In plain words, the you show the world is a mask. That mask is often built from your wounds. It's not who you really are. It's who you've learned to perform to stay safe. That mask can be incredibly effective. It can help you climb ladders, build businesses, impress people. But the fuel that keeps it going is toxic. It burns through you. It's why so many high achievers crash or collapse when they finally slow down. They weren't being driven by a calling. They were being chased by a fear. Shadow work takes away the false fuel. When you finally confront your shadow, the parts of yourself you've denied or rejected, you begin to withdraw all the projections and compulsions that used to drive you. You stop needing to prove you're not weak. You stop needing to hide your anger or vulnerability. You stop using achievement as a shield. And in that moment, all the old fuel disappears. You're no longer running from a monster, but you haven't yet found something worth running toward, so you stop. Everything feels flat. It's a lot like a car that's been running on dirty gasoline. You drain the tank because you know it's damaging the engine, but until you put in clean fuel, the car won't move. You haven't done anything wrong. You've just interrupted the old system before the new one is in place. This is not depression, it's decompression. That's an important distinction. Depression is a clinical condition that needs care and support. What you're feeling here, if you've genuinely been doing the work and are now experiencing a hollow stillness, is usually a different phenomenon. It's not your brain shutting down, it's your survival system shutting down. It feels alien because you've spent years, maybe decades, running on adrenaline, guilt, and external approval. When that suddenly stops, you don't just feel calm, you feel like someone unplugged you. The noise in your head quiets, but so does the push that got you out of bed. Jung saw this over and over in his patients. In his practice, he noted that once a person integrates their shadow, the withdrawal of projections leaves them temporarily directionless. That's not a pathology. That's the psyche rebalancing itself. It's like your nervous system finally exhaling after holding its breath for years. The mask falls, but the true face isn't visible yet. Another reason this feels worse than you expected is that you're not just losing motivation, you're losing an identity. When the persona collapses, the person you thought you were goes with it. That's scary. Even if that persona was built from pain, it still gave you a script to follow. Without it, you wake up and realize, I don't know who I am when I'm not proving myself. That's not a small question. That's an earthquake. Jung didn't sugarcoat this. He warned that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, the real work isn't the pretty part. It's the part where your old self dies. That's why it feels like a blackout instead of a sunrise. The in-between state is natural. It's tempting to interpret this as a sign you're broken or regressing. But in reality, you're in what could be called a psychological no man's land. You're not the old self. You're not the new self. You're the gap. And that gap is supposed to feel disorienting. Think of a snake shedding its skin. During the molt, the snake becomes slow, vulnerable, even partially blind. If you didn't know better, you'd say it was sick. But it's not sick, it's transforming. It has to go through that awkward, exposed stage to grow. You're in that stage right now. Your old skin, the persona that ran on fear and approval, is gone. The new skin hasn't hardened yet. That's why everything feels tender and raw. Healing doesn't immediately hand you a new life. It first takes away the old one. That's not a bug in the system, that's the system. If the mask fell off and the real self appeared instantly, we'd all be enlightened overnight. But the psyche doesn't work that way. It needs a pause. This pause is not a punishment. It's a reset. It's the necessary quiet between breaths. It's the soil lying fallow before a new planting. You feel worse after healing because you're no longer being pushed by pain, but you're not yet being pulled by purpose. Your old survival strategy is dead. Your new self is not yet born. This is not depression. This is decompression. It's not weakness. It's withdrawal from the drug of fear. It's not failure. It's the first real chance you've had to feel your own life without the mask. If you can hold that perspective, the emptiness stops looking like a void and starts looking like a doorway. And that doorway leads to the part of you that's been waiting, quietly, to emerge. You thought you were getting better. You thought healing would feel like progress. But now you're not so sure. You feel slower, heavier, emotionally muted. You've lost the edge that used to push you forward. And somewhere in that stillness, this thought creeps in. Maybe I'm slipping. Maybe I'm going backwards. But what if you're not falling apart? What if you're just falling in? You see, most of what we call progress in our culture is movement, hustle, building something, becoming something. But that's not how real transformation works, not the deep kind. The truth is, most real change starts by taking everything apart. Not because you're broken, but because you're finally stopping long enough to see what was never truly you. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He called it the middle, the space between who you used to be and who you're not yet ready to become. He didn't describe it as enlightenment or bliss. He described it as a collapse, a slow, quiet undoing of the version of you that was built to survive, not to live. That's what makes this phase so confusing. You're not in danger, but you don't feel safe. You're not depressed, but nothing excites you. You're not lost, but the map you were using no longer makes sense. And so you ask, am I regressing? No, you're just in between. You're standing in what Jung called the threshold, a liminal space, where the old self has fallen away, but the new self hasn't stepped in. You're not backtracking, you're shedding, and that process is meant to feel awkward, empty, strange, because for the first time your psyche is no longer performing, it's recalibrating. Let's be real, before you started healing, much of your energy came from fear. Fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of being left behind. That fear may have made you productive, but it also kept you disconnected from your truth. When you finally start facing your shadow, the parts of you you've buried, denied, or rejected, something profound happens. You stop reacting, you stop performing, and everything goes quiet. Not because you've failed, but because you've paused. But here's the hard part. No one teaches us how to sit in this silence. Everyone loves the before and after story, but no one talks about the during. This middle stage doesn't look inspiring. It looks like staring at the ceiling, wondering why nothing feels urgent anymore. It looks like taking walks with no destination. It looks like saying, I don't know what I want anymore, and meaning it. You're not falling behind, you're falling inward. And yes, it's lonely here, especially when the world keeps asking you to explain yourself. People around you won't understand. They'll say, you used to be so driven, or why don't you care anymore? And you won't have an answer they can accept, because they're still performing for a world you've started to walk away from. Jung warned us about this too. He said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. When you stop performing, it unsettles those who still are. Your silence triggers their noise. Your stillness threatens their speed. But this part of the process isn't for them. It's for you. It's where your psyche begins to clear out the noise, the lies, the roles you've outgrown. It's not graceful, it's not exciting, but it's necessary. You're not late, you're not lazy, you're not stuck. You're simply not where you used to be, and not yet where you're going. That doesn't mean you're going backward. That means you're in the tunnel between two lives. And in that tunnel, there is no light yet. Just echo, just shadow, just the sound of your old identity falling away. So what do? Nothing at first. You wait, you listen, you let the silence shape you. This isn't a stage you can rush. There's no checklist, no shortcuts, only time and honesty and your willingness to stop pretending, because pretending is what you've done for years. To be liked, to be safe, to be good enough. And now, for the first time, you've stopped, and it's terrifying. But that terror is sacred. That pause is sacred. That stillness is the space where something real can finally take root. So no, you're not going backwards. You're just beneath the surface, where the seeds are planted. And, in time, when you're ready, you won't bloom out of pressure. You'll bloom because you've finally made space for something honest to grow. Most of us grow up learning how to move through life by being afraid. Not obviously, not dramatically, but quietly. We push ourselves because we're scared of being left behind, scared of being judged, scared of being invisible. Fear becomes the hidden fuel for everything, for our achievements, our goals, our relationships. We don't always realize it, but underneath so much of what we do is this silent thought: if I don't do this, I won't be enough. We call that drive, we praise it. But really, it's pressure. Fear dressed up like ambition. Then one day, something shifts. You start doing the inner work. You get tired of chasing. You start facing the uncomfortable truths in yourself. Your anger, your insecurities, your guilt, your shame. You begin to see how much of your life was built around trying to be liked or respected or safe. So you drop the act. You let go of needing to prove yourself. You stop living from your wounds. And for a while that feels powerful. You feel clearer, lighter. But then the energy disappears. You stop feeling like doing anything. You don't want to chase goals. You don't feel hungry anymore. And the world, even your own mind, starts whispering. Are you becoming lazy? No, you're not lazy. You're just not being driven by fear anymore. And that's new. So it feels empty. Your body and mind are used to being pushed by survival mode. When that switch gets turned off, you don't immediately spring into a new purpose. You pause, you stall out. That's not a problem. It's what happens when the old engine dies and the new one hasn't started yet. The question is, if fear is no longer your driver, what will move you now? The answer isn't dramatic. It's not a lightning bolt. It's not a grand life mission dropping from the sky. What comes next is usually subtle, soft, easy to miss. You might start taking walks again, not for fitness goals, just to breathe. You might find yourself drawn to music you used to love, or writing random notes in a journal that no one will ever read. You might fix something in your room and feel calm afterward, not excited, just present. And that's how real motivation begins. It's not loud, it doesn't demand attention. It feels like a small pull, something inside you saying, hey, maybe this. And if you follow it, without rushing, without turning it into another task, you begin to feel something shift. Let me tell you a real kind of story. A man quits his high-pressure job after years of burnout. He doesn't know what's next. For months, he does nothing productive. People worry about him. He worries about himself. Then, one day, he finds a few pieces of wood in the garage and decides to build a small bench, just for fun. It doesn't matter. It's not a business. It's not a career. But it feels right, so he keeps building. For the first time in years, he's not anxious, not performing, not trying to prove anything. He's just doing something that doesn't hurt. That's what motivation without fear looks like. It's quieter, it's slower, but it's real. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Becoming who you truly are doesn't mean finding the most impressive version of yourself. It means learning to live from honesty instead of fear, from curiosity instead of survival. So if fear no longer drives you, don't try to replace it with pressure. Don't panic. Don't rush into a new identity just to feel productive again. Pause. Pay attention. Listen to what feels honest, even if it's small, even if it doesn't make sense yet. Something inside you is trying to emerge, not to impress the world, just to exist. Follow that. Not because you're chasing anything, not because you should, but because it feels like you, and that's more than enough. So if you're feeling lost after healing, remember this: you didn't lose your drive. You lost the fear that was pretending to be it. Now is the time to listen, not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet pull within you. What's trying to emerge through you? Leave a comment below, not just for you, but for someone else out there who needs to know they're not alone in this. And if you're wondering why even your old passions suddenly feel empty, watch my next video, Why You Lost Interest in Your Hobbies After Awakening. See you there.